No more war. We do not accept that in any circumstances, for any reason, there should be war. We have nailed it to the pillory as a dreadful crime committed between people. In 1938, all of Europe proclaimed that war was a crime. But here, in Germany, one man, Adolf Hitler, and one party, the Nazi Party, wanted war. They decided to tear up the Treaty of Versailles and to remake the map of Europe by force. Since 1936, Hitler has reoccupied the Rhineland, annexed Austria, and crushed the Sudetenland. He must be stopped, but no one dares. Paris, in the summer of 1938, Edouard Daladier, word. That doesn't matter, as long as peace is assured.
I am certain now, thanks to the wish for mutual concessions and to the spirit of collaboration which has strongly animated the action of the heads of government of the four great Western powers, that the peace is safe today.
France, worn out, divided, and obsessed by the memory of the slaughters of the First World War, heaves a sigh of relief. The French right, traumatized by the Popular Front and by the Spanish War, is obsessed with communism and cherishes a secret admiration for Hitler and Mussolini, strong men who know how to maintain order in their countries. And the left, are they going to fan the flame of patriotism against fascism? The French left is stunned. How can this be possible? Hitler wants a free hand in the East because he intends to attack Poland. He knows this will mean war with England and France, but he doesn't want to fight on two fronts simultaneously. Stalin, faced with the delaying tactics of the Western democracies, has done an about-turn. He wants to gain time. Summer 1939. This is the third front. September, German troops go into Poland. An irresistible force, 63 divisions, of which 6 are armored, supported by 2,000 planes. Faced with this, the Poles can only field 12 cavalry brigades and 300 planes. In spite of their legendary bravery, what can the Polish lancers do against the German armor? In London and Paris, there are anguished consultations about the invasion of Poland. This time, there must be no drawing back. Paris and London send Hitler an ultimatum. If hostilities have not ceased before midday on September the 3rd, it is war. In Paris, Edouard Daladier doesn't dare to submit this decision openly to Parliament. He simply asks them to vote him exceptional military authority. In the French Assembly, the word war will not even be mentioned in the course of this debate, in which Deputy Louis Jacquinot took part.
I have to say that the Assembly wasn't unanimous. One must recognize that. And then there was a history of ambiguity, because the declaration of war was made under the guise of a vote for military authority. Daladier must be blamed for this method of presenting the declaration of war, as I told you. The truth is that negotiations were continuing, and I have the impression, in contrast to the British, that there was a hope all the same that the war wouldn't happen, or at least that the Germans wouldn't attack France.
What was the atmosphere like here?
Very disturbed. There really wasn't the enthusiasm of the First War. I was young in 1914. There was, without doubt, national unity, at least in the Assembly. The Assembly was unanimous. There wasn't, first of all, the eagerness. One must say the country, after draining itself, as it did in 1914, didn't want to experience a second war. There was still a feeling that it wasn't right to excite the heart and not to show enthusiasm for a fight.
France goes into the war, but holding back all the way.
We will make war because it is thrust upon us. Each one of us is at his post on the frontiers of France. In this land of liberty, where respect for human dignity has one of its last refuges, you must combine all your efforts with a deep feeling of concord and fraternity for the welfare of the country. Long live France. Vive la France.
More than half those who went to fight had already fought in the First World War. André Arquin, commander of the 34th Infantry Regiment. Monsieur Arquin, this plaque brings back memories to you, doesn't it?
Yes, it brings back great memories. I found myself there on August 25th, 1914, mobilized in my turn, and in 1939 there I was again at the same place on the platform. The faces weren't the same, though. In 1914, they had an enthusiasm, they had something, it was exciting. Whereas in 1939, people were thoughtful. They thought of all the things they had left, because to make war again within 20 years is hard.
Daladier greets the British minister, Sir Anthony Eden, who represents the British cabinet and the countries of the Empire.
Au ministère de la guerre, aux représentants des dominions de l'Empire britannique.
He's welcomed as a friend and a powerful ally. The government tries to reassure the French people by every means. But the pompous phrases of the propaganda written by the celebrated writer Jean Giraudoux ring terribly false.
Soldiers of France, our own young men, go bravely once more to make history with love for the defense of honor and liberty. Our brave and good people who, in so many of your quiet family groups, assemble already with the...
Courage, said the propaganda. Life goes on as before.
Be still confident. Always show confidence. Total confidence. Believe that everything is entirely in order and all goes well. The vineyard workers, since the beginning of this season, have been harvesting throughout France, as one sees here in Champagne and in Alsace. They are the young soldiers who will be forming the French army. They will assure the security of the frontiers. When the Franco-British brothers in arms return to us to sample the pleasure of drinking and laughter with us, these wines, with a wartime date, will be more delectable than ever, particularly the famous Alsace crop, the border wines.
During this time, Hitler crushes Poland. In 6 days, the German advance columns reach Warsaw. On September the 20th, the city is completely surrounded. The 30 divisions of the Polish army have been totally defeated, powerless in the face of the German armored force. But Warsaw, the first martyred town, resists for a week in spite of daily bombardments by the Luftwaffe. By October the 1st, it's all over. German troops enter Warsaw. This is the September the 17th. Soviet troops also. Russian. Before leaving, Hitler has entrusted this new protectorate of the German Reich to a Governor General, Police Chief Hans Frank of the SS. And he gives him a mission: settle the Jewish problem. In the West, Hitler has left 30 divisions, stretched along 530 miles of front. Against them, France has been able to concentrate 85 divisions, a unique opportunity to attack. On September the 5th, Operation Tsar is launched with a great show of publicity. But only 10 divisions advance cautiously on a 12-mile front, going into Germany through the Vannes forest. They take 15 days to penetrate 5 miles into German territory without meeting any resistance. The Germans have suffered enormous losses, announced the communiques proudly. In fact, they have less than 200 dead. The truth is that the French commander-in-chief, General Gamelin, doesn't believe in an offensive. After the fall of Warsaw on October the 1st, he orders a withdrawal, at night and in secret. At the time, General Beaufray was a captain at Army headquarters.
I must say that, in fact, it is Gamelin and Gamelin alone who carries the responsibility for that farce which was the so-called offensive on the Saar front.
The French army could have made a big offensive.
Not only could have, but should have, for reasons of morale. But they just made a half-hearted attempt. If one had made a push at that moment, we would have had almost nothing in front of us. Perhaps certain inadequacies in command would have been shown. One would have had to replace some generals, as they did in 1914. It would have given the army a lift and a capacity that it wasn't able to get back later.
It was a lost chance.
It was a completely lost chance. Much more so at that time when the Siegfried Line wasn't even finished. It was the incompetence of Gamelin, who was a person who was entirely, if you like, unprepared to make a decision.
It wasn't only Gamelin. I imagine the government didn't want this offensive either.
Well, as to the government, there was a very curious situation which developed during the winter when I was at Army headquarters in Paris. It was the position of Daladier. Daladier, who was a veteran of the First World War and quite brilliant as well, he had remembered the many casualties of 1914, etc., etc. And he had a motto which was, one must economize on French blood. In consideration of which, I was charged, personally, by the Army General Staff, to put on foot 7 divisions, which, if I remember rightly, were 3 foreign divisions and 3 Senegalese divisions. That was economizing on French blood, wasn't it?
C'est ça l'économie sans français.
After the invasion of Poland, France expects a German offensive. Edouard Daladier, doubling as Prime Minister and Minister for War, inspects the defenses. He is again brought out his gaiters and his leather coat from World War I. The German attack is awaited, well back behind the Maginot Line. The Maginot Line, an idea dating from 1929. A line of uninterrupted fortifications, 300 miles long, which runs from Switzerland to Luxembourg. There's only one problem. It can't be extended along the Belgian frontier, because King Leopold wants to safeguard the neutrality of his country. And if the Germans attack through there, it doesn't matter. Marshal Pétain had replied in 1935, "We will corner them like rabbits in the Ardennes." The Maginot Line, insurmountable. It took 6 years to build, 1.5 million square yards of reinforced concrete, 150,000 tons of steel. On the surface, one can see almost nothing, because the defense work is below ground, where there are miles of tunnels. Here, 500,000 men lived 120 feet below, like moles. Commander Gangloff spent 9 months of the war here.
Eh bien, la vie sous terre, évidemment.
Well, life underground is quite hard. It's quite hard because, obviously, in peacetime, there is boredom and inactivity. And from time to time, the soldiers grumble. They suffer from what's called the concrete bug.
On souffrait, c'est ce qu'on a appelé la bétonite.
The Maginot mentality became a factor that was to prove fatal to French morale. While it gave a feeling of invulnerability, there still remained the hope that the Germans would not put it to the test. The Maginot Line. It isn't only an armor plating of concrete and steel. It has become a mystic symbol. To doubt it is to doubt France. Hitler, encouraged by his success in Poland, wants to attack in the west at once. Returning from Warsaw, he summons the commander-in-chief of the army. They also remember the First World War. For 2 weeks, they try to convince Hitler. The Polish campaign has revealed serious weaknesses, a lack of preparation. Hitler is furious and proclaims, "It is I who decide. I don't retreat in front of anything. I win or I fall." There is a breach between him and his general staff. Certain officers seriously consider overthrowing him with a coup d'etat. And on November the 8th, Hitler narrowly escapes an assassination attempt in the famous beer hall of the Bergenbraukeller in Munich, where he was celebrating the anniversary of the 1923 putsch. Is it the signal? And their plan. Hitler. So, like the French army, the German army digs itself into the Siegfried Line. The summer of 1939 is over. Winter is coming, and still nothing happens. People begin to hope that the war will end before it has really started. The stalemate continues for months. 5 million Frenchmen, called up to fight, are involved in this phony war, a war of waiting. During this time, the newsreels tried to keep up the morale of a country that was unprepared for war. This one shows French soldiers receiving 2,000 soccer balls that had been donated by an Englishman. The French people saw the soldiers gather to watch films in bomb shelters or to see shows in homes that had been offered for these events.
Et tout aussi bien dans les casemates de l'avant, partout, le cinéma de l'armée apporte sa distraction.
The entertainers of the time went up to the front to sing and dance with the troops. The songs and music contained an element of hope. Hope that the war that everyone was waiting for would never happen.
Le colonel était de l'action française. Le commandant était un modéré. Le capitaine était pour le diocèse. Et le lieutenant, bouleté du curé. Le chuteux était un fervent extrémiste. Le sergent, un socialiste. Convaincu, le caporal, inscrit sur toutes les listes. Et deuxième classe au PMU. Et tout ça.
In this climate, the war went on. In Germany, Goebbels' propaganda ministry launches a new kind of war, psychological warfare. Over Radio Stuttgart, the French traitor Cerdonnet repeats his favorite slogan, "French soldier, you're fighting for Britain," and announces the movements of the French frontline units before they even receive the orders themselves.
On vous a trahi. Vous battez pour l'impérialisme britannique.
How can the Germans be so well informed? The fifth column, of course. Keep quiet. Be suspicious. The ears of the enemy are listening. So spy fever is born, and hatred of the fifth column grows. German agents find French pro-fascists to help them. And the bombardments? They won't be long delayed. A passive defense must be organized to protect Notre Dame, the treasures from the Louvre must be evacuated to the Chateau of the Loire. And the gas, as in 1918, it will be terrible. But after a few weeks, the excitement is over, and the gas mask has simply become a fashionable accessory. Yes, it's truly a phony war. Obsolete French planes fly dangerous missions over Germany, not to bomb, to drop leaflets, an assault of naive and pompous propaganda.
Une attaque aérienne avec 100 tonnes d'explosifs.
The newsreels maintain that leaflets are more effective than bombs. The Allies believe they can win the war by revealing the truth to the German people, rather than bombing them.
Les vérités que ses gouvernants lui cachent. Les Alliés, pénétrés de la sincérité de la cause qu'ils défendent, obtiendront la victoire autant par la vérité que par les armes.
Winter has come. In the east, still nothing happens. It's one of the coldest winters that France has known for a long time. Christmas arrives, the first Christmas of war. Along the Maginot Line, the soldiers wonder if there will be others. In London, the end of the year is greeted joyfully (1940). France takes hope again. Time is working for us, it's said on all sides. In fact, the factories work at full capacity. Tanks leave the assembly plant at the rate of 300 a month. France begins to catch up in the armaments race. She's buying more and more planes from America, 200 already. Maybe the government is waiting for the Americans to come and fight with France. President Roosevelt would certainly like to. He knows that sooner or later, America will have to come into the war. But his country is divided. Lindbergh, the hero who had been first to fly the Atlantic solo, doesn't hide his admiration for Hitler, and he campaigns against intervention in Europe. He has brought back successfully the slogan, America First. Even the United States ambassador in London, a certain Joseph Kennedy, another admirer of Hitler, preaches isolationism, while he's 50 in March, 550 in April. $1,600 planes in 5 months. But what can rival the Messerschmitt? March 1940. France has a change of government. Parliament has lost confidence in Daladier. Paul Reynaud replaces him. He's an Anglophile and in favor of an offensive. He has been properly elected by the vote of the majority, but he's obliged to retain Daladier as war minister. The propaganda changes its tone. We shall win because we are stronger, the posters proclaim now, showing the immense French and British empires. And it's true, on paper.
Incontestablement.
Undoubtedly, we had a certain self-confidence. I'd like to make it clear that the French army was considered a thing of importance, solid, dependable, etc.
Mais dans le même temps,
But at the same time, we were conscious of a great many weaknesses in the French army. One was very deeply conscious, for example, particularly my generation, that the French army was a great pillar of an outmoded party. For example, the developments in aviation, the developments in tanks, hadn't been adopted sufficiently by the French army, and therefore we had serious deficiencies.
At the beginning of April, the Allies lay mines around the entrance to Norwegian ports, send an ultimatum to Norway and Sweden, and prepare several landings along the coastline. But Hitler accelerates his advance. He takes 4 hours to occupy Denmark and invades Norway. A new demonstration of lightning warfare. On April the 9th, 6 German divisions make a surprise landing. The Norwegians haven't had time to mobilize and attempt vainly to defend themselves, but they're crushed by the Luftwaffe. The Germans have air supremacy at all times. In 48 hours, the Norwegian Nazi has taken power. The king takes refuge in the north, then in London. For Hitler, it's another victory of staggering proportions. 8 days later, the Allies invade and the British land in the middle of Norway. They won't get far. They have to re-embark at the end of a week. For in Norway, the invincible Royal Navy makes a bitter discovery. Supremacy at sea is nothing without supremacy in the air. The Luftwaffe has sunk one of the few British aircraft carriers, the Courageous. Only a month later, the end of the whole campaign takes place outside Narvik in Norway, with the French Expeditionary Force commanded by General Bétuat. In the glimmer of the polar night, the 13th Brigade of the Foreign Legion, a battalion of Alpine troops, and 2 Polish battalions succeed in landing. After 10 days of hard fighting, the French finally take the town. It's the first Allied victory of the war, a victory won on land by General Bétuat, and which succeeded in stopping the steel supply to the Germans. But not for long, for only 24 hours, in fact. The next day, the Expeditionary Force is recalled urgently to France. There, the real war has begun. Saturday, May the 10th, at dawn, the German paratroopers of the 7th Division, under General Student, board the Junkers 52s. Objective, Holland. This time, Hitler stakes everything. He throws the entire German war machine against the West. 80 divisions, 3 times along a 120-mile front, led by armor. On the morning of May the 10th, the 9th Panzer Division clears the Dutch frontier and rendezvous with the paratroops at Rotterdam. For the first time in history, the enemy falls from the skies. No one has ever seen this before. Student's paratroop mission is to take the airports and the bridges around Rotterdam. By late morning, he is able to announce to headquarters, mission accomplished. The next day, May the 11th, the armoured troops rendezvous with the paratroops, and the road to Rotterdam is open. For the Dutch, the situation is desperate. Queen Wilhelmina and her government leave for London. On the 14th, Rotterdam surrenders. But too late. Goring's bombers are already on the way. After Warsaw, Rotterdam, the second shattered city, with 1,000 dead, 25,000 buildings burnt out, and 8,000 civilians made homeless. The whole world is shocked and indignant. Holland has been overrun in 4 days. At the same time as they are attacking Holland, the Germans invade Belgium in the direction of Liège. Belgium, so jealous of her neutrality, that at one time she had brought her troops up against France. Faced with the might of Germany, she depends on the fortified line of the Albert Canal, of which the principal fortification is Eben-Emael, reputed to be impregnable. For the Germans, it's essential to take Eben-Emael. They use a new trick. Gliders drop 300 shock troops who cross the Albert Canal before the Belgians have had time to react and proceed to attack the fort. They know what they have to do. For weeks, they practiced the operation on a mock-up in Germany. The Belgian 7th Infantry Division, who hold the fort, resist for 24 hours. But having obtained reinforcements, the shock troops make another assault. At midday, a trained acrobat climbs onto the roof and drops explosive charges inside the main casement. That's the end of Eben-Emael. After crossing the Albert Canal, the German armored divisions push on towards Liège and Namur. Everything is clear to the French General Staff. The Germans are again trying the 1914 maneuver, the famous Schlieffen Plan. Attack Belgium and carry on towards the Somme and Paris. The counter has been decided for a long time. General Gamelin orders the Allied armies in the north to throw themselves into the path of the enemy. Between Liège and Namur, at Gembloux and Louvain, they succeed at first in stopping the German advance. But Hitler has only invaded Holland and Belgium to divert the Allies. He wants to attack at Sedan, through the Ardennes, between the Maginot Line in the south and the Allied armies now heading north. The plan was developed by General von Manstein and is called the sickle blow. The objective is to head towards the English Channel and surround the Allied forces in Belgium. Three German armored divisions, the 19th Panzer Corps, lead the advance through the Ardennes. They're the crack troops. The best forces in the German army have been held back to take part in this offensive. Among them was Lieutenant Clemens von Kagenack.
After the victory in Poland, in 3 weeks, we had a feeling of superiority.
And you thought you could overcome the French army in the same way?
No, not at all. Just before the 10th of May, Each one of us, I believe, thought it would be a very tough adventure.
L'armée allemande
The German army had a great respect for the French army. Through the hard experiences of the First World War,
de la Première Guerre, et ce respect n'existait pas en...
And this respect wasn't only in the ranks, but also at headquarters.
Les hauts milieux de l'état-major.
To lead the attack, the General Staff chooses General Guderian, a man of the new school, a tank specialist. In 1936, he read the works of General de Gaulle with approval. Guderian has an unshakable faith in his armored troops.
We knew that such a difficult enterprise would not be able to be won and exploited if the command and the troops weren't fully prepared. We were sure of victory when we began to march to the frontier on May the 9th.
No one was waiting for them there. The massive wooded area of the Ardennes, an impossible obstacle for tanks, everyone said. Not for Guderian's armor. He orders them to advance, day and night, without stopping, to exploit the surprise and the confusion of the enemy. They cross Luxembourg in 3 hours, the Belgian Ardennes in 1 day. They're resisted by the 9th Army of General Corrupt, but on May the 12th, they're already on the River Meuse. They have covered 80 miles in 48 hours. On the Meuse, several French units of General Hunziger's Second Army resist courageously amidst panic and disorder. They even manage to halt the Germans for a time. But not for long. Each time the Stukas fly over, the French have more trouble holding their position. On May the 13th, the Germans take the Meuse. The great German army gains its first foothold on the other side of the river. Guderian himself comes up to supervise the operation. By May the 15th, the battle is over. The French front is broken, and they are pushed back to Sedan. The first move in the Battle of France has been made. The Germans are close to total victory.
The battle you have just seen was one of the decisive battles of the Second World War, a war that affected the destinies of men and nations the world over. The film you have just witnessed was discovered in film libraries all over the world and painstakingly edited to show you the incredible impact these individual battles had on the outcome of this most devastating of wars. The world, thanks to these films, will never forget the tremendous effort put forth by all people included in the big battles.